Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, the Rumpled One, coming to you Wednesday, September 2nd. The year's 2020. Let's talk trading. Secrets of coming back from a loss with Walmal. But before we get started, I just want all you video watchers to know that these videos are for educational purposes only. Your results are different from mine. Trading is extremely risky. You can lose all of your money. If you need trading, investment, or financial advice, seek the advice of an accredited financial professional. I'm getting a little better at reading that really fast. Okay, on most of these videos, we're talking about, putting pips in the bank, hitting a daily goal, etc., etc. But the thing is, it's not always smooth sailing. Sometimes, you know, um, we have to come back from a loss. So, Walmal, you want to tell the boys and girls and non-binary traders what's going on today?
Sure. I mean, I've had an up and down day today, actually, or a down and up day, I guess is a better way of putting it. But it was, my first trade out of the box. I was trading with another trader this morning, and my first trade out of the box, and I took a 7-pip loss on it. And, in retrospect, hindsight, and all those type of wonderful things, I probably shouldn't have taken the trade, but I did take the trade. So I took a 7-pip loss, and so what did I do? I just went and ground it out. In fact, there was somebody I believe it was on the Facebook page, maybe it was on the Facebook page. So what do you do when you take a loss like that? Well, you grind it out. You just go for it, and you just go and the statistics on your side, so you just keep on trading your trade, and hopefully you don't make any mistakes like I did on my first trade, and you work it out, So what happened was I went and took that trade, and what was really wonderful about that is I took that trade, and the very next trade I went and took, I won and got a 2.5-pip win. Doesn't get me out of my 7, but I then took another trade. And that trade was worth over 10 pips. The next thing you know, I'm up 5.4 for the day. So it's like, hey, I'm halfway home. Halfway to making my core. But I had to grind it out. And then the next hour, unfortunately, I took another loss. It took another 7-pip loss, and it put me underwater again. And then I had to go and grind it out. And then the sad thing was I then took a 3-pip loss, and then I took a 3-pip win, and then I took a 7-pip loss, and then I took like a 10-pip win, or pretty close to it. So now I'm up like 2 or 3 pips for the day, probably a little bit more than 2 or 3 pips for the day. It's been a rough day. It's been a hard day. You're gonna have days like that, and that's okay. That's trading. It's going to happen, and as long as your trading plan accommodates that, it's not a problem. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I base my numbers of what I need to make on a particular day in terms of pips and in terms of dollars based on having 200 days. But, we all know that there are basically 240 days. So that means I've got 40 days of play in there. So if I get 40 days of either break evens or, 20 days where I got, got 10 pips and then 20, and then 10 days where I lost 10 pips, hey, I'm still good, right? That's how I have to do it. You just have to grind it out.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we should maybe discuss is after you take that first, loss, whether it's 3, 5, 7, 10 pips, do you make any alterations going forward, or do you just keep doing the same thing?
Okay, the proper answer to that question is you do not make alterations. You just don't. You know what the statistics say. You don't do it. Now, the only alteration I will make is that a lot of times if I'm down, I'm going to look at it and, everybody knows my 10-5-1 plan, try to get 10, try to get 5, and not get 1. A lot of times I'll just jump out with my 2 or 3 pips, knowing that I need to go and make up for the day. And that way I can guarantee I got, let's say I took a 7-pip loss, and in it, what I just went and talked about, my first trade I had a 7-pip loss. The next one I had, a 2.5 or 3-pip win, and the thing is, I probably could have gotten more on that trade. But the thing is, I was looking at it from the perspective, okay, let's go in half our loss. Let's go get the loss, half of the loss off the table. So I do that personally, and it's not built into my trading plan to do that, but I tend to do that. And sometimes I look at it from the perspective that, you know what, it's a good thing to go and do that, because if I can just go and grind it out and get myself back to break even, get myself back to the beginning of the day, you know, then I can make a decision. Hey, do I just want to go and call it quits for the day, or do I want to go and, you know, continue on because my trading has gotten better, or the market gods are shining on me at this point in time? You know, so that's what I tend to do.
Well, I asked that question because, you know, we have a couple of different entry methods. You know, we have the Walmal line, so wherever price opens, you know, between that, you know, we have, like, in this particular hour, price opened above the 40, below the 50, so that's where we go short and long. And this was a news hour. But is there something that other than saying, okay, I'm going to look for 2 or 3 pips and I'm only going to use this method to entry, or, you know, dots be damned, I take my pips off the table, because, you know, once again, we were looking at these trades and I think we were shorting. And if you look at the M5, once we got in that trade, if we would have only followed the dots, you know, we would be up, you know, over 13 pips right now.
Right. Yeah, and that's going to happen. But at the same time, you know, I'll ask you a question, Tiaro, and that is, what's the most important thing at the end of the day?
Well, to walk away with pips and make sure they are not walking away with yours.
Exactly. Walk away with a profit in your pocket. I'd rather walk, you know, if I quit right now and, you know, and I've got, right now I'm up, I just went and checked, I'm up 3.5 pips for the day. If I walked away right now, yeah, I'm only 1/3 of what I need to make in terms of my core, but that's still a good day because I'm not negative. And that's the most important thing. I got to go and make sure I got money in the pocket, you know, and that's, you know, once the money is in the pocket, they can't take it away unless I go and put another trade on. You know, unless I take more risk on. So sometimes you just got to go and say, that's my number one goal. You know, and I noticed the other day somebody went and posted my trading plan out on the Facebook page, and if you look at that, the number one thing that's on that trading chart, big red letters across the top, it says, at all costs, preserve capital. At all costs, preserve capital. That's the number one thing, and that's more important than even making money, is to preserve the capital. Because if you don't preserve the capital, you can't trade. You know, the game ends.
Right.
You know, and that's, so you got to go and take. And so for me, if I'm in a situation where, you know, and I told you earlier on a phone conversation, Tiro, that, you know, I just feel like I'm just not trading well today. I'm late. I'm late to the party on my trades. I'm just not seeing things very well. I'm just not feeling well. And you're going to have days like that. Well, if you're going to have days like that, if you get into a profit, take the profit, you know, take what you get, you know, and walk away. I think that, you know, so I probably would make that one change.
Okay, I'm looking at the charts right now. We just went across the 40 line. We've got a 1 ball on the bottom here. And we know from the past couple of days that price has launched from this 40 line here. I just scrunched the chart so the traders could see that.
Yeah, and if you look at that right now, we're right at the entry point of what a DSR trade on a 1 ball. I generally don't like to go and take that, but you know, it's but it is a valid entry. So, and the reason why, if you notice that 5-minute bar there, it's got the 1 ball on the current 5-minute, but that 1 ball used to be 2 candles ago. 3 candles ago, I'm sorry. It just moved on over there. So, you know, I would be looking for the break of the previous high of the previous 5-minute candle. So it's a legitimate entry point, you know, and you could have, you know, picked up 2.5 pips on that. So when we're talking about grinding it out, that's what I'm talking about. As soon as you get to 2 pips, 2.5 pips, take it off the table. Just get it back. If you do that twice or three times, you've got a 7-pip loss. Well, guess what? You've now covered your loss. Now you can, like I said earlier, make a decision. Do I stay in the game and continue to trade? Or do I just go and say, you know what, today's a good day to go and take the rest of the day off?
Yeah, and one of the things that can really mess with the brain, this goes back to the brain management. Let's say you're down 5 or 7 pips, and you just get in a trade and you're up 3, and you start thinking, okay, come on, just 2 more pips, and the next thing you know, you're up 1 pip. Now you're mad because now you want those 2 pips back, and then it's like, come on, come back. Next thing you know, now you're down a pip, and
or 2,
yeah. So a lot of times you just have to say, you know what? As soon as you see those plus pips, you're out. Like I think there was that one trade earlier. Was it at the 50? I think I went long, and yeah, it was like right at the beginning of the hour, and it was, I think I saw I was up 3 pips, and then it like dropped to like 2.3, and I just hit close. It was like, and then had I waited, of course, it ran up to the 60 on the news, but I'm thinking, you know what? News is coming out. I don't know which way it's going. I'm getting off the table, and I'll just stand aside and watch the news.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's the trade where I took a 7-pip loss on that trade, because what happened was I got in late, because I just wasn't trading properly. I got in late on that trade, and I was actually up 2 pips. And I should have just said, you know what, I'm up 2 pips. I got news coming out literally within the next 4 or 5 minutes. I better get out. And I chose not to. Whose fault is that? Is it the market's fault that it turned around, went against me, and I got out at 7 pips? Nope. It's mine. I made the mistake. In fact, I made multiple mistakes. I made 2 mistakes. Mistake number 1 is I got in late. And mistake number 2 was when I had the opportunity to go and take some pips off the table, I didn't, knowing full well that the market was going to move. Now, the thing is, the market could have moved the other direction, right away, and I could have just never went down. I could have shot straight up like it eventually did. But I didn't know that. I should have just went and said, you know what, I'm out of here. But, I made a mistake, and you just have to recover from that. And that's the head game that you play, which is up, because I after taking that loss, I was like, what are you doing today? You feel like, you feel defeated to a certain extent, but you can't, because you're going to make mistakes. And even if you make mistakes, if you just go and say, you know what, I'm going to grind it out, I'm going to work it out, I'm just going to go and, do my best to go make sure I take the pips off the table as I go, I'll go and work it out. And I did, but it just took some time to get to the other side of that.
Yeah, so to kind of sum up things, because we only got 2 minutes left, you take a loss. So what's the secret? Secret number 1 is you just keep trading, and you keep trading your plan. Secret number 2 is don't try to get it all back in one trade. Be happy for it to take you 2 or 3 trades, because statistics are on your side.
Right. Now, the only other thing I would add to that, Tiaro, is that, you should really have a stop in place in case you take too many losses in a row. Just make sure that you don't wipe out your account because the market's just not being cooperative with you that day, or you're just not seeing things properly. So in other words, don't take, 4 or 5 7-pip losses in a row. Have some type of plug on yourself so that you can say, you know what, I'm cutting the losses here, I'm stopping, and I'm going to go and figure out what's going on. Is it me? Is it the market? Do I need to figure that out. So make sure you got that stop plug in there as well.
Yeah, and that first thing about trading your plan means you don't overtrade, you don't make up trades, and what I mean by that is, oh, I think it's going to do this. No, if it's not on your trading plan, you don't do it. So, for example, like in this trade here, right there was the entry point, and so you could have taken along this one, and right here again, in this past 5-10 minutes, there was an opportunity to make 2 pips twice. And so
Yep.
that's it. You just have to grind it out that way. So, fellow traders, just remember, it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So go out there and drain the banks. The Rumpled One with Walmal over.